listening to Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
two certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only two best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hi.
Hey.
Well, I am excited to hear this because I wasn't here for this interview.
It's a good one.
It seems like it's going to be a lot of interesting stories, a lot of adventures happening in this. So we will get to Austin's bio in a second. But I wanted to start out by telling you guys something very momentous, which is that for the past nigh on a year,
it's been about a year.
We have been working on redoing, as in updating, the content for our course, the Passion Profile Short Course. It is officially done. We have overhauled, updated with like our current thoughts, all of the experience we've gained in the past number of years since we recorded it last time. Added some new bonuses, which we'll get into in a second. And for the next 2 weeks, it is going to be $300 off, which is a lot of change.
It's a big discount.
It's a chunk of change off on our site.
It's because we have been working so freaking hard on this that this is kind of like a promotional celebration that it's done.
This is your
and
celebration.
that it's ready for you.
You had to do no work and you get to save a lot of money if you want to do this course. It is a win-win for you. It was a lot of time and effort for us, but well worth it. And for those of you who don't know what the Passion Profile Short Course is, if you've taken the Passion Profile quiz, which I have to imagine you have, if you are listening to this podcast, if you haven't, please pause.
Stop everything. Go take that right now.
Go to clarityonfire.com/quiz, take the Passion Profile quiz, get your result. Then you will understand. But the Passion Profile Short Course is a really, really great place to start, especially if you're maybe new to us and you're on the path of trying to figure out, okay, I need to make a career change, but I don't want to do what I've always been doing. I don't want to keep going down the path of just changing jobs and hoping that the next one will be better than the last. Like, I'm done with rolling the dice. I want something that feels more aligned to me. My ultimate goal, okay, the Passion Profile Short Course is for you if you can answer yes to the following question. Is your ultimate goal for your work to feel more like living? Like, would you like working to feel more like living? If so, that is the point of this course, because what we want to help you learn how to do is align your working life, how you prefer to work, with your passion profile. Because as you've probably heard us say many a time, I will put some episodes in the show notes where if you haven't heard us talk about passion profiles, or if you haven't heard us talk about some of the major things you need to know about how to work in a way that's actually healthy and in a way that actually works for you, I will throw some episodes in the show notes for you. But that is what we live for, is to help you figure out how to turn your working life into something that actually feels less like it's stealing away from your life and more like it's integrated with your life. And it's a natural expression of who you are, rather than thinking, oh, well, maybe I just don't know what I want to do. Nope. Knowing what you want and knowing how you want to work are two totally different things. And everyone thinks that the what matters so much, and they don't spend any time thinking about the how. And it's usually the how that's making them miserable way more than the what.
We have been helping people take their passion profile and use it to redirect their career in a way that's so much more aligned with who they are for, I don't know, like 8 years or more. And we've built up a lot of understanding about these profiles that we came up with, but over the years, we've really understood what they look like in context and how people can go about making the changes that's going to really align them with that profile. And we've taken almost a decade's worth of
knowledge
and unofficial research into passion profiles and updated.
I would call tens of thousands of hours.
Yes.
Not unofficial. Like, I would call that pretty freaking official.
I don't know that we did a statistical analysis, but we have a lot of anecdotal and experiential research.
Right.
And this is our latest and greatest version of what to do to actually finally pursue work in a way that aligns with who you are.
Yes. Work in a way that works for you. It's kind of the unofficial tagline of Passion Profiles. So
this course is always available, but it's not always available at this price. So that's why we're letting you know for the next 2 weeks, if you want $300 off, this is the time.
There's no code. There's no special link. It's on our site. There will be a link in the show notes, but you can just go to clarityonfire.com. The Work With Us tab has the Passion Profile short course page under it. That's where it is. That's where you can sign up. If you already are a member of the short course, you can log back in and check out all the new content because you get access forever once you buy it. People who have bought it 8 years ago are still welcome to log back in and redo it, which I think is very nice because, you know, some of these memberships out there that have a lot of content, they charge you a lot of money per month to just like keep access to that membership, which, hey, I'm sure it's really valuable, but like charging you a pretty small amount one time forever for you to have access to this content if you want it. The course is something that you can, if you want to, sit down and do it in a day. It's, I mean, as if it was like a work day. You treated it like, I'm not going to work today. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to do a couple hours in the morning. I'm going to take a lunch break. I'm going to do more in the afternoon. I'm going to take a mid-afternoon break. I'm going to do more before dinner. Like, you could totally get through this whole course in a day if you were motivated. If you don't want to do it in a day, that's also totally fine. You don't have to.
At your own pace. You'll get access to the content immediately, so you can go as fast as you want, as slow as you want. You can go back to as much content as you want over and over again if you want to. Once you are in, you're in indefinitely. Yeah.
So we get into each of the 4 passion profiles in detail so that you can understand yours. You can understand if you have a secondary profile, because that really does influence sometimes. Like, what's not working is you don't realize I have this other profile that's influencing my dissatisfaction. It's causing friction. We get into how to job search according to your passion profile. We get into busting through some blocks, getting clear on your deeper values. There's a lot of really great foundational stuff that if you are brand new to Clarity on Fire, or if you have never done anything with us yet, this is a perfect place to start to take a lot of what you probably learned in this podcast and make it more official and really like do a little bit of work that goes a long way. And we have a couple of bonuses too.
We have a couple bonuses that we've redone, but we also have a brand new bonus. So even people who have been part of the course before now are going to have something new to go in and explore, which is something we swore we were never going to do, but we decided to do it our way.
With caveats and like with a disclaimer, we decided to do it.
For years and years, people keep coming to us asking, can you give me a list of jobs that are right for a fire starter or right for a side hustler or whatever your profile is? And we've always maintained, no, there is no such thing as a comprehensive list of jobs that is appropriate for any given profile. And yet, over the years, we have seen that certain maybe categories or types of jobs might align better with some of the desires and the characteristics of different profiles. So we finally did a list of example jobs based on your profile.
Not comprehensive.
Things that might, and that not an across the board prescription by any means, but things that might get you started and get some ideas spinning and send you in some cool new directions that are more likely to be aligned with your profile. And that's now in the course as a bonus.
Yeah, there's also our dream job bundle, which is, again, Kristen and I, we've never claimed to be recruiters. We're not Emily Lou. Go listen to some of our episodes with her if you want to hear from a career coach who specializes in resume stuff and like LinkedIn updating and that type of stuff. However, we also have helped a lot of people transition into jobs that are more aligned with their profile. And so we have a lot of things in the dream job bundle, example documents, like example resumes and cover letters of people who kind of took the knowledge that they learned and applied it to their resume and their cover letter, and then actually were successful in making a transition into a job that was really aligned with them. There's a lot of good stuff in there too.
And we also have a bonus about passion profiles in relationships, both work relationships, but also personal relationships, because understanding your profile and understanding other people's profiles can help you communicate better, understand each other better across the board in all areas of your life. And that's been pretty transformative for a lot of people.
Again, it's 2 weeks now, and then the last day will be the 28th. This will be $300 off. So go to clarityonfire.com, go to work with us, check out the short course. You can read more on the page if you want to about what's in there and what you can expect. And then after that, it'll be $300 more, and you're going to be mad if you didn't do it, I think. Hey, and if you're a longtime Clarity on Fire fan and you have like a friend or a sibling or someone in your life who has constantly been complaining to you about their job and their life, and you don't know how to help them, you could send them this episode and just tell them, listen to the first few minutes of this to understand, or come back next week. We're going to do an episode that's probably very passion profile related next Friday. No, not next Friday. Yes, next Friday, the 21st. Sorry. We're recording out of order. I don't know what day it is. But yeah, come back next Friday or send them some of the episodes I'm going to link to in the show notes, because those are really good ones too. Mm-hmm. And tell them, this isn't going to hurt you. This is only going to help. Stop complaining to me and get help from people who know what they're doing. Okay.
We can't wait to see some of you in there, and some of you old members back in there seeing all the new and improved content.
Oh, yeah. And that by see you, that means we have a forum where you can introduce yourself and you can share your experience and you can ask questions if you have them, and we respond to them. So just so you know, there is a little interaction if you want it. Okay. I don't need to tell you where to find it again. You're smart. Go figure it out if you want to do it. Okay.
Back to Austin.
We'll be talking about that again. Don't worry. Yes, back to Austin. All right. Let me read Austin's bio. How about that? Austin is a 28-year-old who worked for 3 years as a police officer before finally being able to accept that it wasn't the right fit, at which point he took the leap and walked away from the stable career he'd spent years preparing for. He resigned in September of 2021, and since then has been using a variety of methods to travel the world, connect with new people, dabble in new work, and adventure. Since quitting, Austin has lived in a Buddhist monastery, worked as a ranch hand with cowboys in South Dakota, dug up dinosaur bones in Montana, taken care of stray dogs in Costa Rica, property sat a retreat center in Wyoming, lived on a farm in Ireland, and more. To this day, he continues to explore the world and try on new hats, and he's here to tell you that you can do it too. I love this. I feel like Liz Gilbert would be very proud of Austin because she's done half of those things.
Absolutely. And what you're going to love about this episode is Austin is sharing all of this, not just to say, hey, look, I've done all these cool things, but very vehemently to say, you can do this too. And you can do this in any way you want to. You can quit your job and do this kind of like adventures around the world as your new form of living and working. You can just do it for a couple weeks if you want to change a pace there. And he gives some very specific places you can go to find some of these opportunities that you don't have to create them yourself. So he makes this very approachable. If there's any part of you that's like, I just want to have some cool life experience beyond just waking up and working and eating and sleeping. Like, I'm just tired of the routine. I want something to shake up my life and something that is on my bucket list. I want to finally prioritize that. He makes it really approachable and really simple to have your own adventures. So he wants to be a model more than anything else.
And Austin is one of the rare normal people who you and I have not worked with in any capacity, really. He's been a longtime podcast listener and recently shared this update with us and thanked us because he said our podcast actually really inspired him to quit and do this, which I love. I will take credit. Even if I don't deserve it, I will take credit for that. Thanks, Austin. Okay. So I am looking forward to hearing this as much as you guys because I haven't heard it yet. So have a listen and we will be back at the end.
Hey, Austin.
Hello, Kristen.
I'm pretty excited to talk to you today because I know the highlights of your story that you shared, but I am curious to hear more of the details along with everybody else who's listening. So this is kind of fun to dive in all together. And I don't even know exactly where we're going to go, but I know that you've got some really cool experiences to share about. And I have a lot of questions.
Well, I am happy to get into it and I am honored to be here. So yeah, let's dive in.
Awesome. So this is kind of fun because usually our quote unquote normal person interviews are with our clients, maybe current clients, former clients. Mm-hmm. But even though you haven't worked with us directly, you've been a long time podcast listener.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe since the beginning? I don't know. I mean,
I say 6 or 7 years. So that takes us back to what, maybe 2016-ish.
And,
so
Rachel's gonna kill me for not knowing exactly when. I think we started this in 2017.
Wow.
So
wait,
since the very beginning.
Wow, that's awesome.
That's
I didn't
fun.
even really. I was trying to remember how I originally stumbled upon you guys, and I honestly can't remember. It might have been like a Google. Oh, no, you know what? It was probably the passion profile quiz.
I'm sure.
That's the way.
That's usually the entry point, the entry drug, if you will.
Yep. And I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? And now here we are, 2023.
And now here we are. So you've been on your own personal development journey, for lack of a better term, for years now. And it's kind of fun that we've been in some way, in some part,
influencing me along the way.
Yeah, a small part of that. So it's exciting to hear someone's story who has been in the Clarityverse, if you will, but I haven't gotten to hear all the details along the way. So I do know from what you shared that a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago, you were in a job that I think you described as toxic, like not a good situation. And yes. I kind of want to start there because I think that's going to be a huge contrast from where you were then to what your life looks like now, almost a 180. So can we go back there and describe a little bit about where you were at and what that situation was?
Yeah, no problem. So I was a police officer, and that was for about 3 years I did that. I definitely describe it as toxic, but I would say it was toxic for me. I understand it's not toxic for everyone. Being a police officer, it's a tough environment, and you're dealing a lot with the underbelly of society, people who have less means, less access to education, all sorts of things. So you just deal with a lot of difficult situations a lot of the time. And it was definitely wearing me down. 3 years of doing that. Our schedule was pretty wild. Like we would switch between night work and day work every 2 weeks. So 12 hours at night and then 12 hours a day and back. And I had my circadian rhythm had long since departed. My body did not know what time it ever was.
Yeah. Well, plus the way I've heard the work of police officers is that you are seeing people on their worst day.
Yep.
Every day.
Yep. A lot of the time that's true.
And that's just got to be intense.
Yeah, it really can turn you into a bit of a cynic, like the sort of everybody's an asshole mentality of, it's like you just keep dealing with people and they lie to you, or they, since you're a cop, people have all sorts of charged opinions about you before they've even said a word to you based on what you're wearing. And it's a tough job, and it was definitely mentally and physically kind of wearing on me. I'm surprised I lasted 3 years. I think I was just in this space where, I was thinking about the future. I was in this grind mode. I was saving up a lot and trying to not spend as much as I could. And I was like having this sort of positive can-do attitude that I think it almost honestly worked to my detriment of maybe almost, I would say, lying to myself about what was okay, like how okay it really was that I was still there and still trying to make it work when maybe I really should have listened to some like my intuition or my gut and pulled the plug earlier. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, but it makes sense our brains like to do that, try to rationalize. It's not so bad. It's right to keep the status quo. But there must have been, I wonder, was there a breaking point where you knew you had to quit, or was it a slow build of a realization that I got to get out of here?
Yeah, I would say both. It was, on the one hand, this slow build of, day after day, different things happening, popping up. But then it came to this point where a position in my department opened for a detective. And I applied along with 2 other people. And they put each of us through sort of like a probationary role in that position for a couple months each. So I worked a couple months in the role as a detective, and then we waited on a decision. And I had told myself at that point, if I get the position, I'll stay longer. But if I do not get it and I, set to go back to what I was doing before, like working on the street, I was like, I'll leave. So I remember sitting on an island in Maine. I was on my own little trip up there, and I got a call from my police chief, and he was like, "Hey, sorry to say you didn't get the position." And, I said, "Okay, thank you." And I hung up, and I remember just thinking, okay, like the new chapter it's coming,
That's my sign.
The end is nigh. Yeah.
Okay. So what were you thinking? Did you have a plan at that point? I mean, you knew you needed to leave, and that was your breaking point, if you will. But did you have any idea of what was next? Because I know a lot of people are at that point where they feel very done with their current situation, whether it is a job or whatever it is. But there's so many fears in pulling the plug, quitting, moving on to something else, especially when whatever you're moving into might be a little bit unknown. So I just want to hear a little bit about that transition and what some of the fears were that you were facing at that point.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I will say, like I'm sure other listeners to the podcast I'm a person who doesn't know what they do want out of a life and career, but, are interested in trying to figure it out. And, I had imagined like all these different possibilities, like dreams, if you will, of like, what if I had like tried this or could do this, like these imagined lives of sorts. So I had been stewing on that kind of idea of like, I wish I could dabble in trying different things and wearing different hats. And when it was getting close to the end there, it really was like, I knew I was at the end of the rope. Like I just couldn't see myself going back to just doing that street cop work. So yeah, I mean, it's those fears you would expect, that leaving that security, that steady paycheck, the routines, that it's a career, like the people around me were people who had been there 20, 25 years, 30 years. One guy was there 40 years. And, everyone talks to you like, oh, when you get to my point in the, in the job, this and that. And so, you're looking around you at like, this could be your life. I could have stayed there for my entire working career. And it was a pretty daunting thing, both imagining that and then imagining cutting it off. This great, like the benefits and all these things they give you to sort of sweeten the deal. Yeah. So it made it really tough. But I was like, if I don't pull the plug now, when, So once I've made a decision, I'm pretty good at going, boom, okay, this is happening. That's what I did. So,
I know people feel that, but if not now, then when? But it's one thing to know it, and it's another thing to act on it. So it's really inspiring that you felt that and you set that deadline, if you will, of let's get the word back about this promotion, this other job, and I'm gonna use it as a real sign. And if that doesn't work out, then that's my cue.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was almost like that ultimatum in my own head. It almost put the decision away. Like it was like, all right, the decision's made. It's just a matter of what happens. And I feel like it took some of the weight off of my shoulders of like knowing I had already decided what it was going to be depending on the two outcomes. And then it just unfolded as it did. And I just followed what I had decided.
I love that way of looking at it. Like I've decided ahead of time, and now I'm just waiting for the circumstances to direct me on which next path. There is some relief in that. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Well, since then, which was what?
That was September of 2021. So about a year and a half now we're almost looking at.
Wow. Okay. So all the things that I know you've done have happened in a year and a half. That is
a little
wild.
bit less, I guess. Yeah.
So let's talk about some of the things that you have done in the last year and a half. We can always go back and figure out, okay, how did that transition happen? We can do some of the hows in a bit, but I first want to paint a picture of what has life looked like this past year and a half after taking the plunge, quitting, and deciding I'm on a whole new path.
Yeah. I mean, I knew I wanted to make good use of this sudden free time I would be falling into to dabble and to try things and to explore and to really try to figure out what sort of things I might like to do longer term. So I think before I had even left in September 21, I'll say this, like first and foremost, Google is my friend. You cannot imagine like what Google will turn you on to of like just Googling like volunteer opportunities this, and suddenly you're looking at some website that offers this and that and that. I remember when I was, not to jump ahead, but when I was like looking into paleontology, I was just Googling like active paleontology sites that, are currently where people are digging up dinosaurs. And suddenly this website comes up and it's like, oh yeah, we're still doing this out in Montana. And guess what? You can come do it too. And I was like, oh, okay, no way. All right. So sign me up. It like Google really has been an asset for me in that, like just being able to search anything that I want and options just pop up. And I know it sounds like it's obvious, but it's turned me on to so many different things and possibilities. So
isn't it wild what we have access to now that really generations before us never could have dreamed of? And now you can have a thought of, I wonder where people are digging up dinosaurs. Oh, cool. Well, maybe I can just go be part of that. It's amazing what we have access to, but you first have to have the open-mindedness to even think, let me see what's out there.
And one of the first ones the first thing I really did after I quit was my therapist had turned me on to this meditation center. It was started, I think, back in the 80s by a Sri Lankan monk who came to the US he had been in Sri Lanka his whole life, and he wanted to spread Buddhism to the US, I guess, to Western culture. So he found this very rural place in West Virginia outside of Washington, D.C. That's kind of where he based his location on, was proximity to D.C. And he started this retreat center, and cut to 2022, I guess, is when I went, 2021 when I went. And there's this full, this monastery there with Sri Lankan monks. And I found their website after my therapist told me about them. And I just filled out their little application thing, sent it off to them. And they were like, okay, yeah, we'd be happy to have you. And that was like a month. So I quit my job and then pack up my car. And suddenly I'm driving to this monastery and I lived there for a month. So
what a transition from police work to a month-long residency at a monastery. I mean,
It really blew my mind a little bit because the atmosphere there was just so, there's a lot of reverence, a lot of quiet, like so much stillness. That was such a profound experience. I would say that's an experience I probably learned the most from out of any of them about myself,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just walked away from there really having a different sense of what I thought was important and what mattered. But yeah, I mean, I was just living the life of a monk there. So you wake up at like 4:30 a.m. You go meditate for an hour with everybody. Then there's chanting. They eat breakfast. You eat all your meals in silence. And then there's another meal at about 11, which is like lunch. And then you don't eat again for the rest of the day. And you meditate again for about an hour in the evening. And then, you go to bed maybe 8 or 9, rinse, repeat. It's a very, you do like work around the monastery during the day. It was a very quiet and peaceful sort of existence.
Wow. Again, what a stark difference from the emotional intensity and the probably moments of a lot of chaos and
Yeah.
of, again, involving yourself in people's like worst moments on every given day to quiet and slow pace and going inward instead of being so focused on what's going on around you.
Yep. Yeah. A lot of space.
How challenging was that?
It was very challenging. I definitely had multiple like crises while I was there.
Sure.
I remember thinking, like, oh my gosh, like I'm sitting at the monastery maybe a couple weeks in, and I'm like, do I need to become a monk? Like, is this like the right way to live? Like I was like this relationship to life and to other people. And it was just so compelling in so many ways. And I was like, is this like the right thing to do, the right way to live? And luckily there was a guy who, he, like me, one day had just visited the monastery, but he never left. He had been there years at that point. And he talked to me and he was like, no, obviously you don't need to become a monk. It was like validating in that sense of like, you can still live a normal life and, be pursuing these sorts of this value structure and living in a sort of mindful way without shaving your head and living in isolation.
Right.
Yeah, there was a lot of reflecting that happened on that trip. That's for sure.
And I imagine it must have kicked off the rest of this time in a really fascinating way, because when you spend a month mostly with your own thoughts, you can't help but start to question a lot of things that you thought were true. I have to imagine. Having not spent a month at a monastery, although I am down for that. Nunnery, maybe? I don't know what that would be, but I'm here for that experience.
Men and women are both welcome at least the monastery I was at. It was the Bhavana Society in West Virginia. Yeah, so I definitely was questioning, my relationship to money, my relationship to work even, like what am I looking for in like a job? What am I trying to get it to give me that I don't already have now? What is it? Is it peace of mind? Is it happiness? Is it contentment? Like what am I looking for outside of myself that I don't already have? I'm thinking about my relationship to my family, to my friends, people close to me, like concepts of Buddhism of, like clinging versus healthy attachments and just big questions.
Yeah. So after that, I know you did a whole series of different volunteer experiences, and I'm going to just call them, it was like a year and a half of adventures. You're still in the middle of it.
Yeah, I'm about to leave for another one. Yeah, we're recording this in February. On the 13th of this month, I'll be headed to Ecuador, to the edge of the Amazon, to work with illegally trafficked wildlife that have been rescued and brought into a situation where they can be rehabilitated, hopefully reintroduced to the wild. And if not, just taken care of responsibly. And that includes, big cats, leopards, jaguars, monkeys, parrots, other jungle wildlife you might find in the Amazon. So that's coming up shortly. And, there's more adventures sort of on the list.
And you just got back from Jamaica, is that right?
Jamaica. Yep. Mm-hmm. That was an interesting experience. It's been a whirlwind. And, between coming home and then like getting some rest time and then heading back out and coming back, it's like, it's been a crazy time. And like I said, without these sites and services I've found, none of this would be happening. We're fortunate enough that we live in a society where people have already thought, what if there was an app where, people who want to travel and work could connect with hosts from all over the world that need work done and want somebody to come visit for free, no exchange of money, unless it's previously like agreed upon or stated. And I mean, that system exists and it's called Workaway. And I've done that twice now, once in Wyoming at a retreat center, and then once in Ireland on a farm where I lived for a month. So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's honestly incredible. The Ireland was the second one I did, but it was a matter of, I looked at their profile. They said what we expect is 5 hours of work, 5 days a week. And in exchange, you can have a place to stay and you can eat our food and we'll hang out with you. And they're a local, they're an Irish family. So I said, I just sent them a message. I said, hey, here are my dates. This is kind of what I'm looking at. What do you think? And they responded. They were interested. We had a Zoom call and that was that. They were like, okay, buy your tickets and we'll see you soon. So then, I ended up spending a month in the countryside of Ireland. They would loan me their bike and I would go driving the roads and be picking wild blackberries and exploring old castles. And, that was just my life for a month. And I would work, those 5 hours each weekday. It was things that an unskilled laborer could do, such as, gardening, painting, feeding. I fed their horses and their cattle. And and I would just explore Ireland.
Wow.
And that was that.
I have so many questions. But because I'm like, that just sounds idyllic.
It was. Ireland had been on my bucket list for a long time. And to be able to do it, I actually, and how they did it, they were so nice. They consolidated my days off so that I could rent a car and I just explored huge part of the country, driving obviously on what for me was the wrong side of the road with the steering wheel on the opposite, everything's like reverse there. But just driving around Ireland, going to cliffs, going to other castles, just popping into little pubs and getting a pint. It was like, what else is there? I don't know.
Well, the reason I am so fascinated about this story in particular, and this is probably true about all of the really cool things you've been doing this past year and a half, is the fact that it's so accessible. Like, I would hear this typically and think, okay, well, this must be some like trust fund person, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Who is like, oh, I'm just going to take a hiatus from working for a while and just go spend a month in Ireland and spend a month at a monastery and what is fascinating about what you're sharing is that there are systems, there are platforms, there's people who have made the connections for you where you don't have to be independently wealthy to have experiences like this. You don't have to even uproot your entire life indefinitely. There's ways of folding these more adventurous experiences into a normal person's life in a way that I don't think a lot of people imagine is possible for them. So
It's really, some of these are such dramatic ideas that, and like you said, sometimes it seems mostly to come down to the cost of a plane ticket. And obviously you might be thinking about things like, well, is my lease coming to an end, or can I store some of my stuff with family? Or if it's short enough, that doesn't matter. But, some of these workaways I've found, I would love to list a couple of them that I found that were it just blew my mind. But they'll like ask that you come for a month or more. If they like you and you like them, like you could live for 6 months in some of these places, and you don't have any living expenses or food expenses in some of these cases. You are just having this give and take relationship with these people. And that's all there is. It's really wild.
That is wild. I feel like you're making it seem so simple. Like,
I know. It's
you
just
think the logistics would be so complicated, and you think the finances would be so complicated, but it doesn't have to be. If that's something, and I know we have some people listening, because some of them are my clients who have a lot of wanderlust and have this really strong desire to get a total change of pace of just the normal day-to-day grind, the normal routine. But it feels so daunting to think about taking a break from work, and what would I do about money, and what would I do about my house? It's like, but a lot of these scenarios you're talking about, it's all kind of built in. Where you're going to stay, and what you're going to eat, and what you're going to do during the day. And it's all kind of baked in, and it can be much simpler to have a really exciting life where you get to have experiences you never thought possible than most people would imagine. Again, it's a product of being in this day and age where so many more opportunities are available to us, but so many, like, people have figured out the logistics for you in a lot of cases. Yeah,
like this app, like I'm saying, just a couple that I found. These are favorites I've saved from Workaway. And so these are just examples. Workaway honestly is so daunting to me that I kind of need other people to go do some of these, because there's no way I can go live all these lives by myself. But here's a couple examples. Help at a kindergarten in the heart of Delhi and be a part of a typical Indian household in India. So there's one. Help around the house, preparing meals, and teach our kid English or French and learn Japanese in Tokyo, Japan. Volunteer at a nonprofit horse rescue in Montana, close to Yellowstone National Park. I'm
going to raise my hand for that one.
Okay, all right. Shoot him a message. This one blows me away. Chef for a 16th century farmhouse among vineyards, olive groves, and UNESCO heritage sites in Tuscany, Italy.
What?
So, hey, do you know how to cook?
I need to brush up my cooking skills.
if you're listening and you know how to cook, hop in these people's... That's what I would tell people is like, do you have any skills? Do you know an instrument? Do you know any languages that aren't English, or even that are English? Can you cook? Can you babysit? Do you know marketing? Do you know how to farm or garden or anything? Because if your answer is yes to any of those questions, there are people looking for you who want your help. And if your answer is no to all of those, like me, and you don't know how to do anything, the answer is still yes, because there's always unskilled labor that needs doing. It really is just like there's one for experiencing ranch life in the American West in Wyoming. Stray animals in Sri Lanka, a hostel that needs help in Guadalupe, a dog shelter in Peru. Like, these are just ones I found. I didn't even have to look very hard. And, I'm sure people are wondering, well, how do you know, you're not going to show up and there's going to be a serial killer there waiting to kill you? That is a good question. And there is a review system on specifically Workaway that, you can look at people who have traveled before you, and they'll write a review. They'll say what their experience was like. And so you can judge for yourself, if somebody has reviews that you don't think are good, don't go there. But there are plenty out there where, the reviews are all resounding. This was a great time. I love this. And you can make your own decision on that.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point, is you get to vet everything, it sounds like. People have
Yep.
vetted before you. You get to have Zoom conversations ahead of time, communication ahead of time, and just make sure that everything feels like it's on the up and up before you move your life for the next few weeks or months, possibly.
Yep. Yeah. And I know like for women, especially, like I obviously have the luxury of not experiencing any of it, but usually you can tell looking, or they might even say themselves if they were like a solo female traveler in any of these places, to just see for yourself, okay, so a woman went here before by herself, or, any of those kind of things. So you can kind of have that sort of judgment for yourself as well of whether you feel like it's safe.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. You get to make sure that your comfort level is high before you commit to anything.
Yep.
So you read out some of maybe your short list of some of the cool opportunities you found, but there's several that you've already done that we haven't even touched on. I mean, we touched on a few, but do you want to give just the quick highlight reel of some of the other things that you have done?
Yeah, sure. So after the monastery, I spent 2 months in Costa Rica working with stray dogs at a shelter. That was, an amazing time, very rewarding working with those dogs. And that was through a website called ivhq.com, which has volunteer programs all over the world. That was a paid experience. So, you're basically paying for accommodations and a place to stay using that service. And then after Costa Rica, I volunteered for 2 months in a neutering clinic for cats. And that also was the result of a Google search. That's actually just around where I live. I was just looking for something to do with my time while I wasn't traveling. And I found this clinic that needed people to help. So I hit them up and I said, hey, do you need some guy to do some stuff? And they said, yeah. So I help in the cats after they've had their surgery. They come to me and we, just make sure they recover well and we clean them up a bit. But I've been called in now to help with a couple surgeries. And, like there was this one surgery, there was this bunny that was getting an operation, and bunnies are super delicate. They don't do surgery very well. So my job was literally to just rest my little finger on his heart and make sure that he's just doing okay. But yeah, so there were some crazy, wacky things I saw in there. Then I went on a trip to Texas, right on the border of Mexico for a bit, with a friend. I worked as a ranch hand on a cattle ranch in South Dakota for a month. After that came that retreat center in Wyoming where I stayed there for 10 days. That was a work away. And that was the first one I had done. And that was a great situation. They actually, shortly after I arrived, they left. And I was like a property sitter, basically. I was the only one there at this beautiful retreat center in the mountains of Wyoming. And I would work for a couple hours each day. I was helping to build a trail on the property. And in my free time, I would drive to Yellowstone and I would explore the park. I would hike mountains. It was really just an amazing time. I forgot to mention the cattle ranch. That was actually sort of an unusual one. That was through a friend of a friend. I knew somebody who knew them, and I didn't know them at all, but I was connected with them. And, I messaged them and I said, hey, would you like a guy to come help do ranch hand type stuff? And they said, yep, come on over. So, and then after the retreat center in Wyoming came the paleontology dig in Montana, which I did for a week. That is with Elevation Science. They offer that opportunity. That's definitely a paid experience, but you can go out and you can be a paleontologist for a week. Did you ever have a dream of, digging up dinosaurs as a kid? Because my answer to that was yes. And you can go do it, if it works.
I have a feeling Rachel might be all of a sudden saying, I'm taking a break from from coaching. I'm going to go on a dig. She had he's always loved paleontology. So that's going to be tempting.
Yeah, that one was, it's like a lot of these they're just these surreal moments where I'm like, wow, I really am here doing this, aren't I? Especially with just how fast these things have been happening. It's like life can feel very surreal when you're just like popping from one magical place to the other, seemingly.
I can imagine. It makes me wonder, I mean, you must feel like you've been learning so much about yourself, about just the world in general. Like, what are some of the things that some of the biggest things you've taken away from all these experiences over the past year and a half? Because it has to be life-changing.
It definitely has been. I mean, I think there's so much power in being able to like basically find yourself in someone else's life for any amount of time, whether it's a week or it's been 2 weeks or a month, and just experiencing like, what is it like to have a ranch in South Dakota? What is it like to live in Ireland? What is it like to be a paleontologist? Like, that's what I value over, anything else, is just having that slice of different lives of just like, what is it like to be in this experience? And like I said, the monastery was one where I really walked away feeling like I had learned a lot about myself. Just, I mean, I feel like from doing all these things, one thing I definitely learned is there's no silver bullet. You can go do something amazing and awesome and incredible, and then at a certain point it ends, and then it's on to the next thing. Or, even while you're there, it's still real life. Problems come up, things that annoy you, things that bug you, things that you worry about or stress about. It's fantastical, and at the same time it's reality. Like, you're not going to enter this alternate reality where everything's whimsical and great. I mean, I remember in Costa Rica, there was a time when some of the dogs got away. They escaped from the shelter and they ran off into the jungle. They came back. First we were stressing about them being gone, and then they finally came back, and the one was really beaten up. He had really gotten hurt, like in a fight with other dogs, it seemed. There's big ups and downs in some of these experiences. I mean, that's part of the adventure, is like you take the good and the bad.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I feel like people can definitely, whether it's an experience like what you're describing, that just feels like it's complete disruption of your normal routine in life, or really just any escape daydream. Yep. Can start to feel like it's this perfect place where nothing's going to go wrong once I get to that place. Well, that's not the reality. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be stressors. There's going to be personality conflicts. There's going to be moments of doubt, just like you're having now. But do you want to be having those negative experiences in your current reality, or do you want to be having it in a reality that the highs are much higher, even if the lows are still low?
Yeah. I mean, on the point of like happiness, I remember back when I was in the police academy, I thought, I was like, when I graduate from the police academy, I'll be happy. I'll be done it. And then I graduated and I need to get a job, and I was applying to departments, and I thought, this is so stressful. Like, once I get hired and once I have that job secured, like, then I'll be happy, And then I got hired, and suddenly I was like, well, for the first year on the job, there's this probationary period where you can be let go at any time if it's just not working out. So I told myself, once I'm done the probationary year, then I'll be happy, because then, I'll be secure in my job. And before you know it, the probationary year's over. And I'm like, you know what? I'll be happy if I make detectives. That'll be, it's setting that goalpost further and further every time. I saw myself just delaying happiness and trying to find it in something else, some imagined reality. And I think that could be easy to do with something like this, like trying to find happiness in an adventure or a dream travel situation. And I definitely think it's dangerous, because, the reality is you will still be you wherever you go. Like your same, like the part of your luggage you take with you is your own mind. So, you have to just be ready to know that, you're still going to have ups and downs, and it's not, the credits are never going to roll, you're still going to be in that adventure, but that's part of just taking the good with the bad. And I feel like that's something the monastery really implanted in me, was sort of this underlying contentment, through all these things passing, thoughts, feelings, reactions to things, being able to see these things and let them go without getting attached or worked up or just any kind of overwhelming involvement in, these natural things in life that come and go. So yeah, I think
again, what a beautiful way to kick off your whole experience.
I know. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is like the monastery is a good one to start with, because it sort of set the stage of like almost this realization of, I don't need to travel. I'm not doing it because I'm trying to find something that will make me happy. I'm doing it because it's awesome. And, there's adventure out there, but I'm not looking for something that is going to, the silver bullet.
Such a different intention, such a more healthier intention.
And it's hard to, keep that in mind. It's definitely work. It's ongoing work.
I can imagine. So what is next? I mean, I know you're going on the next adventure, I think next week, as of when we're
Ecuador.
recording.
Yep.
At this point, do you see yourself just doing really cool experiences like this until something in you tells you, okay, that's now let's go a little deeper into this one thing?
Yeah.
Or is there a time frame that you have in your head of, I want to do this for however many years? Just because I can imagine people being like, wait, is this like a whole lifestyle? Is this like is this something that you do before you go back to just the same old? Like, and if you don't know the answer, that's fine too. But I'm just curious what your thought is as of now.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I definitely have met people on the road who this is their lifestyle. I mean, I met one guy at the monastery. I think he was about 60, and it was amazing because I had assumed he was like 40. He looked so young, but he just goes, he sold everything, and he just kind of goes from monastery to monastery and lives there. And, I guess when he gets bored or when he wants to see something new, he goes to a new one, and he just strings those together. That's his life. I've met people who, it's like some of these workaways and positions, like I said, if it works out and the people like you, there's nothing stopping you from staying, and just, that's your life now. You could just live there somewhat indefinitely, obviously, until, something gives or something changes for you or for them. But it's really true that some of these situations can start you on an entirely new life track you wouldn't expect. I haven't had that yet. I am bogged down by loving relationships with friends and family that, pull me back to my hometown. It's like I only leave for so long, and then I start to miss my dog and my family and my friends. And it's just this, so I am compelled to return over and over again because I have people who I love to see and be with. But, if I were living in a situation where I didn't have so many friends and family close together in this, in a small town where I'm from, I could easily see myself, staying for months at a time in some of these places, because, great people are out there and they're happy to have you if you, do the work that they ask, or, whatever the agreement is. It's the possibilities are out there. So for me personally, I plan on doing this for at least a bit longer. I've been looking into sailing. I would love to work on a boat. I don't know anything about boats, but I'm
what a way to learn.
I'm sure I could learn on the fly. I mean, I actually found a guy on Workaway who had a boat, and he was offering to have people. So I thought maybe I could learn that way. I honestly, recently I just Googled sailors wanted. That was my Google, and sure enough, 2 websites popped up, both basically what I'm talking about with Workaway, but for boats specifically. So crews looking for, or so I should say like captains looking for crews, or if you are a person looking to find a boat to work on, that there are already a couple sites I found that connect you to people who want people to work on boats. So yeah, The future looks uncertain for me, but that's okay. I don't quite know what's coming down the pipeline, but I'm excited to see.
But that's half the fun, right?
Yeah, yeah. The unknown, both terrifying and inviting.
Absolutely. That's the name of adventure, right?
Yeah,
It has to
yeah,
have a little bit of
really.
that unknown flavor to it for it to be extra exciting.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like anybody, some of these adventures I've set out on, they are scary and there's a lot of questions you don't have answers to. I would have friends asking me like, oh, so like, what are you going to be doing here? Like, what's this going to look like? Like, where are you going to do this? And I'll be like, I don't know. I don't have a lot of the answers sometimes. And it can be intimidating, but that's where the adventure is, I guess.
I also have to imagine that after doing a number of these types of experiences, it sounds to me at least like you've developed some self-trust in I'll figure it out. I've gotten really good at Googling. I've gotten really good at vetting opportunities. I figured it out how many times by now? I'm sure I can do it again. So the questions maybe, while they're always daunting, because the unknown is always a little scary, there's got to be like a resilience muscle you've been flexing.
Oh, yeah.
This
Definitely.
whole time. So it's a little bit, maybe a little less daunting now than at the beginning.
Yeah, I would certainly say that. It's like I can look back and be like, well, if I did this, I can do that. Like it does help to be able to, look back on a history, and that history slowly gets built up over time. There's always the first one and, the second one. But over time, yeah, you accumulate these experiences and yeah, you grow to really, like I'm so comfortable now. I feel like meeting new people, not being afraid to ask questions, and it's a muscle, and if you work it, it'll build in strength. And I've certainly seen that for myself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I want to I feel like we've been dropping some little nuggets all along here, but if you could put yourself back in the mindset of where you were a year and a half, 2 years ago, in a job that you knew was not a good fit for you. And even though you could see a possible future there, you didn't necessarily love what you saw.
Yeah.
And because I say, well, put yourself back there because I think a lot of people are currently there. They're in that experience.
Yeah.
They know this is not the right job for them, maybe not even the right career for them, maybe not even the right lifestyle in general for them, but they have no clue what is next. And the idea of trying some different things and having some different experiences as a way of clarifying what do I really want next might sound really appealing to them, but they're understandably scared or uncomfortable in the way I'm sure you felt when you were contemplating making that big change. Yeah. What would you want to tell that person listening or the you of a couple years ago from where you are today?
Yeah. Regarding sort of that feeling of being trapped almost in yes. a job or I mean, I would ask that person, are you really being honest with yourself, about, are you trapped? Are you really trapped? Do you have people that rely on you, significant other, kids, like, do you have things that are really tying you to this and that like it would be impossible to leave? Because I don't know, what I would say is this isn't a trial run, this is the real deal. Life only happens once, and you have one shot at this in this world. So I often think about regrets, if tomorrow, I went to the doctor and they said, yeah, I'm sorry, but you have 3 months to live, I would feel, very good about how I've spent the last year and a half. I would be at peace in that sense of knowing I had done these things and gone out and explored the world. And I would not be sitting there thinking, oh, what if I had done that? I wish I knew, what could have been or what might have happened. knowing that I've done that and be able to look back on these experiences that have happened, they're in the history books, and they can't be taken away. I would ask these people, is what you're doing, really how you want to be spending your time? How will you look back on this point, on this time in your life? Yeah, that's probably along the lines of what I would say.
Well, I'm going to tie that to something you said earlier, because I think it's just it's the opposite perspective on the same thing. And whatever lands is probably what you need to hear, listener, right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you can look back on the experiences that you've had and say, yes, I maybe didn't do every single thing on my bucket list, but I feel really satisfied. I feel like I've really prioritized the things that matter to me and had some of the experiences I've always wanted, then great. If you can't say that, then maybe it's time to take out that bucket list and figure out how am I going to do some of these things instead of just imagining them.
Mm-hmm.
So looking backward and seeing, what have I not yet done, or what have I done that I'm satisfied with? But also, when you were talking about being on the precipice of being in your job and knowing that it didn't feel right, and you could see the trajectory of, if I stay, I can look at some of the other police officers I'm working with and almost put myself in their shoes 20, 30, 40 years from now, and I can see that trajectory. And then there's a whole other possible trajectory if I quit. And imagining that fork in the road, I think that was really powerful, the way we were talking about that, because it's so easy to stay on the same trajectory day after day after day, to not make any changes, and find yourself 10 years, 20 years later on that same path, because you kind of got on it and got comfortable. If you don't like where you see your trajectory going, then it's probably time to make some adjustments. And you might need some big adjustments potentially.
One thought I would just add to that is I feel like there will never be the perfect timing, I feel like it's very easy to feel like, well, when this is like this, then I can make the leap, or, like, I feel like in my experience, you're never going to have every duck in a row, like there will be loose ends. There will be questions you don't have answers to. There will be things that you're afraid of. And that's a part of it, pulling the trigger. It's a difficult thing, but I don't think it's ever going to be perfect. The timing's never going to be just exactly how you want it. And I think it's easy to delay these things based on, telling yourself, oh, well, I don't know, like, I just feel like the time is not quite right, and I have this thing maybe coming up, and
let me get through this deadline. Let me get through this thing. Let me get to the summer. And again, that milestone just keeps getting pushed out further and further.
Yeah.
Really, really good reminders. Like, we know this, but you can't hear it enough times, because sometimes you need to hear it on a particular day when it just
clicks.
It just hits you. Like, yeah, that's true. I can't keep postponing this indefinitely, or it's never going to happen. What I do like about some of the opportunities you've shared is it's on a spectrum. If you want to quit your job and just say, my life now is living from monastery to monastery, you can do that. There are people who are doing that. If you want to quit your job and have a home base like you have, because there's a comfort, there's a stability, there's loving relationships, there's things that are impactful and meaningful in your life at your home base, but you want to go off and have adventures and then come back, you can do that. If you don't want to quit your job fully, but maybe you want to take a sabbatical, you could go have an experience or a series of experiences and still have that home base. If maybe you do have a spouse at home or kids or somebody who you can't completely quit any kind of reliable income, there's levels of doing this. You can go for 2 weeks, you can go for a week, and get a whole new perspective on life and what's available for you. So don't feel like you've got, I just want people to realize they can see what fits into their life And anything from a giant life change to a week in Montana, right? Or
Yeah,
a
just
month in
pushing
Ireland.
boundaries.
That might
Yep.
be a good starting place.
Yeah, you don't need, like you just said, you don't need to quit. Like if you do have a week of time off in your job or 2 weeks, you can experiment and you can find one of these things that you really like and go experiment with it. And maybe you enjoy it so much that you think, it persuades you one way or the other of how you might want to adjust your life at that point. But yeah, you don't need to go all in, all or nothing, unless you want to, and then do it.
Well, thank you so much, Austin. I knew this was going to be a really fun conversation. I think it's been even more inspiring than I was even possibly hoping for, because I think you've done such a cool job of painting a picture of what's possible, first of all, but also making it so accessible. Like, there's no reason that somebody could not have their own really cool experiences that just shake up your day-to-day life and give you a whole new perspective and open up possibilities. There's no reason that anybody listening could not make that happen if they get a little creative. And you've even gone so far as to give some very concrete resources, which I'm going to put in the show notes. We're going to have a list of some of the websites, platforms that Austin has used, so you can use them for yourself, or at least as a jumping off point in your own research. If you heard this and got inspired and said, I want to go to the Amazon for a couple of weeks, I want to go to Jamaica, I want to go to all these places, there's no reason you can't. So we are going to share some of the specific tools that Austin has used. And if you are listening and you have a burning question for Austin, we'll also put some ways that you can connect with him in the show notes as well. So if you want to keep that conversation going, I believe, Austin, you're open to
I am
connecting with people who might get excited and have some thoughts or questions for you.
Yeah. I really have enjoyed coming on here, Kristen. I'm glad, if I can even have one person, change something for the better in their life and, try something new. I just love the idea of more people realizing that these options are out there and being able to follow up. So yes, if there's anything that you are curious about or that you feel is unanswered, feel free to get in touch with me and I will try my best to answer.
Perfect. Well, thank you again. I'm so glad you reached out. This was very fun. You've got the wheels in my head spinning. I'm like, I want to go save dogs and ride horses. And I get the sense we're both big animal lovers. So all the ones you've been talking about, I'm like, wait, I could go just sit with a bunny and just hold its little paw for an hour. Like, absolutely.
It's a big world out there.
You're getting me, you're getting the wheels in my head spinning.
That's awesome.
So I'm sure that's been true for everybody listening. So thank you so much for sharing your story. And I can't wait to hear what you do next. You'll have to come back and share about your next adventures.
Oh, that would be awesome. I would be honored to. Yes. Thanks so much for having me. It's been a great time.
Thanks, Austin. Bye for now.
Bye.
Okay. I hope you guys enjoyed that episode with Austin. And as a reminder, you can do the short course for $300 off between now and April 28th. I'll be reminding you about it. We will both be reminding you about it. But clarityonfire.com, work with us, short course. Check it out. It won't take you that long. Never met a single person who did it who regretted it. And there have been many, many hundreds, thousands. I mean, it's got to be thousands at this point.
It's got to be thousands. Yep.
I don't know. I don't keep track. That's not my job. I mean, it should be, but it isn't. I just know a lot of people have done it. I haven't heard anyone say, oh, I regretted doing that. That didn't help me. Like, no. Bye.
In many, many years. So this is the best first step.
No one's ever been mad at me for teaching them about passion profiles. Let's just put it that way. No one's ever like, oh, I wish I hadn't learned that. That didn't, like, if you're going to be worse off for learning how to align your working life with your with who you really are and how you're wired better. People don't tend to regret that. So anyway, it's a safe investment is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We will be back next Friday with a new side chat. And I think it is going to be, I'm not positive yet, but I think it's going to be one about passion profiles. And we really haven't done one specifically about passion profiles. We talk about them all the time. Haven't done an episode about passion profiles in a long time. So come back for our latest thoughts about some passion profile stuff. That sounds really compelling. I promise it's going to be better than how I just made it sound. All right.
See you then. Bye.